Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, whatever version you watch from the theatrical, final or director's cut, is a masterclass in sci-fi filmmaking and has become such an inspiration for future media that it essentially became the godfather of cyberpunk aesthetics. Dark, broody, neon high-rises covered in old-school New York style mist that arises from the sewers below. This was Blade Runner's crowning achievement, and to this day is still what people talk about the most when discussing the film's impact on cinema and art. But Blade Runner does have its detractors. A common talking point is that the film is overly slow and, depending on what version, is too complex. Unicorns, replicants, and who is human or not. Sure, these are interesting topics to discuss when talking about Blade Runner, but for me, what I find so fascinating is underneath the cold, raining shell of what they thought 2019 would look like is this story about the fear of death. We all have at one point thought about this morbid topic. Sometimes we think about it as we become anxious of the future and what the afterlife may hold in them. To cope with such an unknown question, we have constructed the world of the afterlife through religion, stories, myths and legends, because it is what we do not know that scares us the most. So, we found a way to explain the unexplainable. Death brings up many other questions about humanity, the actions of good and evil. Why be good if at the end of life it is pitch blackness? But there is a chance that if you are good, then there is salvation of an even greater life beyond. Moral questions that I am not educated to give a definitive answer, but questions that bring a lot of doubt into oneself. I am not overly religious. Sure, I grew up in a Sikh household, but that is not what I follow. But because I do not follow a religious path, one that guides me on what is beyond this existence, doesn't mean I justify bad and evil. I try to live a good life even knowing that there might be no reward on the other side. But of course, the idea of pitch black and no consciousness scares me a lot. However, I might not believe the stories of an afterlife, but they sure bring some kind of peace that even if life does end, there could always be something greater on the other side. It might be the slimmest of hope, but importantly, there is hope that there could be more. And it is that hope in a lot of us that guide us into living a life that we can be proud of. It is that hope in us which means that we continue to grow and learn and to keep making memories with the people we love the most. But what happens when you know that there is nothing at the end? What happens when you know the memories you have created will just disappear? What happens when you understand that there is no hope after everything turns dark? And that is the dilemma that faces that of a replicant named Roy. Roy is a replicant that escapes a planet world where he is treated as a work slave and is on a mission to find someone that can expand his life so he can also live a full and beautiful existence. The idea of his imminent death is one that fills Roy with a lot of rage, especially at the people who created him because they gave him consciousness, they gave him memories, and they gave him the ability to be like a human. Roy is no different to us as we both fear death. But as I said earlier, we don't really know what happens after we die, but there is a slim hope in all of us that there could be more. However, Roy knows what happens to him and the other replicants, and that's complete darkness. Just like the machine he is, he just turns off. And it is that future that scares him. It is unfair for him to be exactly like a human but know that death has no hope. And even though death scares many of us, it is also the reason why we live. It is why we get out of bed and keep trying every day because we know that one day this will all end. So we love and we cry and we smell the fresh air and taste food from around the world and read those words or watch those memories that we record. Death is what inspires us to be beautiful in this world. It is what drives us to be passionate, and it is what guides us to dream big because we don't have much time on this blue planet. We get 80 plus years to achieve anything we want in this world. Roy gets 4 and was a slave for most of that time.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Roy, out of desperation, commits crimes, but he is no evil replicant. I believe he cherishes life and is just jealous of what he cannot have. He is someone that mourns his friend's death.
What's going on?
There's only two of us now.
Someone that loves and just like us wants his memories to live on.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
And for that he is seen to be persecuted and retired. Deckard just sees replicants as machinery, and if machinery is faulty then they should be removed.
Replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard. If they're a benefit, it's not my problem.
But so are humans. We all have our faults, but does that mean we should be retired as well? Rachel even asked Deckard about if he ever retired a human by mistake.
Have you ever retired a human by mistake?
This implies how similar humans are to replicants. Should we also lose our lives once we are no longer seen as useful to the world? At the end, Roy saves the life of Deckard, because it was never about revenge for him. As soon as he realizes that his time is coming to an end, he grabs the hand of Deckard and pulls him up. That's because he cherishes life that he can never truly experience. In his last machine breath, he self-reflects on this short 4-year lifespan he was given, and just like tears and rain, that life looks to be seen as it was never there. Blade Runner is a beautiful story about our fear of death. It is a subject that brings a lot of sadness, and Ridley Scott doesn't tell us whether fearing death is right or wrong, but that life is just precious no matter how you come into this world. And through the story of Roy, we experience life as he does in this congested environment that's trying to kill him. He ultimately becomes alone, losing everyone he loves dearly, and accepts his fate to darkness, because at the very end, even when his lights switch off, the question still remains. As he lays there in his unconsciousness, do androids dream of electric sheep?